Hello, I'm Chris White, and I'm your host today for the current session of the Smart Energy Summit Conference Series. Thank everyone for joining us. We have a great agenda planned for today. I will start by sharing some primary research related to energy management, as well as being joined by industry leaders later in a panel for a discussion of trends and best practices. So I will be going first, but then later my colleague will be hosting a conversation and presentation from a leader from Kenmore, who will be sharing his perspective on energy efficiency and IoT technology from the point of view of the appliance category. And after that, I'll be hosting the panel I mentioned with a diverse group of leaders from the energy space, and we'll be talking about how they're working to better educate energy consumers, as well as providing technology that will help those energy consumers save money and also work to make the grid more resilient as well. All right, so as I mentioned, this is a conference series. We open each year with an in-person event. Historically, it's been in Austin, Texas. And then we have a series of virtual events like the one you're attending today. We have one more this year in November that we're going to be talking about EVs, which is a very hot topic, should be a very interesting conversation. And also I want to note that these previous events, the August this is the August one, but the June one is also available in SwapCard platforms you guys are using to view this right now. You can download slides, see the research. There's some different content in there, links to stuff that that our guests shared as well. So definitely, navigate around and see if you can find anything from June. Also want to thank our sponsors today. As I mentioned, this is a hybrid conference series, more or less, where we have some in-person and some virtual. So we have these sponsors all year round, and they support us in both sharing this data and these conversations, but also intimate in-person events where the industry leaders gather and we share meals together and take networking breaks. And so I'm really excited to announce that the next in-person event that is going to be operating like this is actually going to be co-located at Distributech. So please keep a lookout for our announcements on that, and plan to visit Distributech for the larger conference and see all the displays and the tables, but then also come to our event that will be located in one of the side presentation rooms, and we'll be sharing data like this and hosting panels as well. Sorry, everyone, my slides are struggling. But I should just let you know the presentation I'm about to share that has primary data that we collect is based on a quarterly survey that we do of 8,000 to 10,000 internet households. They give us feedback on their sentiment as well as their usage habits of all connected devices in the home, everything from entertainment, smart TVs, what type of router they use, what type of internet service provider they use, to also smart home and smart energy technology like we're hearing today. So Parks Associates is able to provide research on all of those topics for you. We have studies available, and also we host events like this one that share content from each of those sort of subject matter silos. Also wanted to call out we have a new website, which is really nice, much easier to navigate, I think, than the last one. So hopefully everyone can get in there and take a look and find our research that interests them the most. So you guys who are watching this might be most interested in the Energy Quantified Consumer report that we share each Q1 that gives a deep dive on all the information that we are gathering on people's energy usage, and as well as their adoption of things like solar panels, smart thermostats, and other energy technology. So I think you'll see that there's a lot of potentially useful information in that quantified consumer report.
Sorry, Chris. We're having some issues with the slide deck. Let's go to a video.
That's okay. All right, cool. So we're going to go to a video real quick while we try and get my slides ready. And then right after we come back, I'll share you some primary data for you guys. All right, we're back. We're back, and I've got some slides to show you. Okay, so I'm going to get started here, and then we're going to move on to our keynote and our panel. In case I'm moving too fast here, do keep in mind that you're going to be able to download these slides after. And also, I'm happy to discuss them with you if you want to reach out, either by connecting in StreamYard or connecting with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. So our research indicates that most households are now saying their electricity costs are too high. 62% is up from the previous year even. And consumers are not just making this up. This perception is based on reality. We saw a 30% increase in energy prices versus 10 years ago, due in large part to both inflationary cycles that we're seeing today and also the invasion of Ukraine by Russia that resulted in sanctions and energy production and distribution issues in Europe. That became a global issue. So suddenly, Americans who have long been sort of spoiled by the inexpensive electricity that we've been using in this country are facing increased costs that is impacting their home budget. And as a result, what we see is a lot of these consumers are starting to take action, both by changing their behavior in terms of how they use their energy, but also by adding energy technology that can help them better reduce their energy usage in an automated manner. Now, there's three main ways that they do that. The first being reducing consumption, the next being managing the cost itself by using rate plans, and also by generating their own. So home solar is an interesting option right now that is growing. And we also saw some major increases in smart thermostat usage that are going to help the consumers as well as electricity providers who are interested in smart thermostats for demand response. So a lot of interesting information that we have available for you guys in that energy quantified consumer study that I mentioned earlier about all that content. But also, if I could speak a little bit about an industry trend before we get off, there's also some really important movement going on in the energy monitoring space. We're going to be hearing on my panel later from a leader in a company that is handling energy monitoring at the electricity panel. And that type of technology is going to help consumers better understand how they're using their energy in real time and in a more device by device manner, which is something that our research indicated is very popular. So we're seeing that energy monitoring is a potential space for growth, and we will be discussing that a little bit more with our guests later. But for now, hopefully we're going to clean up some of these technical difficulties, and we're going to bring in our keynote from Ken Moore, and he's going to be sharing his perspective on what's happening in the energy space, and also talk a little bit about perhaps smart appliances coming from the perspective of Ken Moore. So I'm looking forward to that conversation, and we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to bring Sri in to talk about Ken Moore.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research with Parks Associates, and I'm so pleased to be welcoming Sri Solar, who's the CEO of Ken Moore and Brands. Sri is an industry veteran. Many of you may know him with more than 25 years of experience leading high-tech products and businesses, from industrial robotics, tech products, businesses in wearables, as well as he was the head of product management and engineering at Comcast, launching and scaling Xfinity XFi to more than 10 million customers. So pleased, Sri, to have you here today and sharing your expertise and really your thinking on the big paradigm shift we're seeing in energy happening today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, and hopefully you all can hear me well. With that,
I can hear you great. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, brilliant, actually. It's a wonderful morning here in Boston, and I'm looking to spend the next 10 minutes hopefully sharing a couple of insights from my vantage point and what I'm seeing in the world of a smarter home, in the world of energy management, and how all this is coming together, and trying to answer some really, really tough questions in this field. So with that said, let me just quickly jump into it. The first thing I want to highlight is I have been in the world of IoT for quite some time, and I just realized, and when I saw a note yesterday that Elizabeth Parks, it's been 25 years since she joined Parks Associates. So the world of IoT has gone through a massive, massive transformation, and I'm really happy to say that I have seen the early days of IoT to where things are right now, and how we are at this amazing intersection of energy and the world of smart home actually coming together. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with you all today. And in terms of my background, I've built robots for, like, let's say the last 6 years. And there are over like 3 million robots that we worked on, from cleaning robots on one side to industrial robots and a swarm of robots that actually work together. And then before that, with home security and automation with Comcast, and then wearables, building products for well-known brands like, Hugo Boss, Juicy Couture, Movado, and before that, being the founder of Cloudprint. So I'm new to the world of sustainability and energy management. And let me just look back and walk you through what I have seen historically and where things are going. And this is something that I really enjoy doing. So stop me at any point in time after and feel free to ask any questions. So what I want to highlight is where we are right now and what's happening with the economy. And let me jump right into it. The early 2000s, we saw connectivity to the internet. And that was an exponential ramp up. And I can easily say that in the early days of the internet, I'm talking about, the year 2000 and 4 or 5 years, we saw the rise of like laptops and desktops connected to the internet. And that number was like 300 million devices connected to the internet. All was great. You had the laptops and desktops in people's homes. You had the rise of broadband. E-commerce was just beginning, and content moved to the internet. You had Netflix on one side, Blockbuster dying on the other. So there was rising and falling, but it was a beautiful time where industry was going through a transformation. And this happened during the early days of an economic downturn after 2001. So that's something that I want to highlight. And then you had the downturn of 2008. But you know what happened? Every time there has been economic uncertainty, more and more devices are being connected to the internet. And with the 2008 downturn, we went from 300 million devices connected to the internet to almost 3 billion. And right now we are close to around 5+ billion in terms of phones connected to the internet. That's the era of glass slabs. And again, today, we are in the cusp of some level of economic uncertainty, deglobalization, if you will. And if you look at the number of devices connected to the internet, it's from 30 billion, fast moving towards 300 billion objects connected to the internet, and which is really, really interesting. And again, there is a 10x effect that's happening, and that's happening in and around times of economic uncertainty. And then what we are also seeing is very interesting. We are seeing a paradigm going from, like, the cloud became a primary point of control in the era of mobile. And now we are talking about an intelligent edge. And anytime there is a 10x increase in connectivity to the internet, we see multiple technologies actually coming together in a perfect storm. And right now, if you're placing your bets, right, you're talking about the intelligent and the independent edge, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. This could be distributed computing. This is now the proliferation of AI everywhere. Whether it's symbolic AI on one side, all the way up to generative AI, and reinforced learning, and patterns in time and space, and I'll touch upon a wee bit on each one of them, and in the world of sustainability. But industries are getting disrupted and transformed. That's the beauty of it. In all these eras, I can basically list a spectacular array of companies that have died and a spectacular array of companies that have done extremely well and disrupted different industries. And what I see right now is, in this era of where you have 30 to 300 billion objects being connected to the internet, wherein there are spectacular array of appliances within the home, the smart panels, your dumb electrical panel in your home is going to get smarter, and you have cars being connected to the internet, and the grids being modernized, and everything actually working in symphony, is the era that we are moving into. So I wanted to take a giant step back and highlight that we are in a new era where there is going to be an exponential ramp up and industries going through transformation. And I'm very happy to say that sustainability, clean tech, whole home electrification, decarbonization is one of the rising tides in this era. With that said, let me quickly jump into the word intelligent edge and basically what's happening in the home. I'm going to tell you a few stories as I jump into this part of the presentation. I don't know how many of you have watched the early days of this movie called the Kilowatt Hours. And I have a very thick accent. And when I say the documentary is Kilowatt and Hours, as in OURS. This was, very early on, Jeff Barry's documentary. And if you look at the visionary way in which they highlight and they tell the story of how a home can be a significant contributor to greenhouse emissions, greenhouse gases. This was done, between 2008 and 2014. But I really wanted to highlight that. And then the second thing, what I want to highlight is the story in Texas. I think it was February of 2021, where we had a spectacular failure of the grids in Texas, and that saw a lot of lives were lost. I think the official number is 246. There are reports which said over 700 lives, and we very quickly figured out that we were fairly vulnerable. And there have been a spectacular array of cybersecurity attacks that has happened on our electrical grid. And what I'm trying to highlight here is we have to make sure that the intelligent edge is our home. And when I say the intelligent edge is our home, we need to be able to be self-sufficient. And energy security is something that is bipartisan in the government. And I think the earlier speaker spoke about the war in Ukraine. And anytime OPEC reduces oil production, look at what happens to oil prices at the gas pump. So the point is making sure that we in the country are independent when it comes to energy is really, really important for us. And most importantly, you know that a more sustainable and electrified future actually begins with home energy management. And those of you who have smart thermostats and who have actually worked and played in the demand response space, you know that you can save, anything from 10 to 12% on heating and like 15% on cooling. But of course, the big question here is that at the cost of my comfort? But remember, when you talk about the intelligent edge, you want to make sure that your home becomes actually very intelligent, and it knows how to play with the grid and protect itself from the nuances, the ups and downs of what happens with the utility. So with that said, I just want to talk to you about some of the advances within the home. And we have been through a very turbulent decade when it comes to the world of IoT. So the first thing that I really want to highlight here is look at some of the things that have happened with the standards bodies. And those of us who have played in the world of IoT, I can't tell you how many standards bodies conversations I have been a part of where we could not get products manufactured by one vendor to work with another vendor's product. Thankfully, we are at a stage where we are getting to the tail end of that issue. With Matter being ratified, there is still a lot of work to be done, but I really think we are at a stage where IoT products can actually work really well with each other. In addition to that, with the introduction of AI and AI being everywhere, our products have gotten a lot more intelligent. I can tell you just by looking at 3 signals, which is basically electricity, which is amperage, voltage, and power factor, which is basically the cosine of phase difference between voltage and amperage of electrical consumption of appliances. I can tell you if a compressor in a refrigerator is going to fail. So we have the data, a spectacular array of data, not just from like appliances, like major kitchen appliances, washers, dryers, but also from HVAC. And for those of you who are playing in the space, you know really well that in terms of heating and cooling, that is the biggest contributor to energy consumption within the home, right? And then you have water heater and EV chargers, and then of course you have the array of appliances, and then you have home insulation. So that's in that order. But with the introduction of AI, we can actually pinpoint and highlight what the vampire loads are. We can pinpoint and highlight what appliances are contributing to sucking up more and more energy when it's not needed, what appliances are energy efficient. So I can go into some details and talk to you about patterns in time and space and how we are able to identify that. The third, of course, is the integrated solar and energy storage. The more you can generate, the more you can store, more you can liberate yourself from the tyranny of the ups and downs on the utility side. And of course, you can contribute back to the grid. And that's a phenomenal thing, if you can do that. And then finally, having a really good understanding on a whole home energy dashboard and being what we call as the GEB, like the grid interactive efficient building, or just able to play in that space is going to be amazing within the next 10 years. And then for both Kenmore and DieHard, our goal is to electrify a million homes, and that's a pledge that we have taken. So with that said, these are the trends within the home. We were talking about the intelligent edge, and I also want to highlight the things that are happening outside. And one of the first things that I want to highlight here is we are seeing more and more renewable energy sources on the utility side, on the production side. But there's also a downside of it. Are they actually really integrated? And that example of Texas, the big question was, are they winterized, for example? So there's a lot of work that needs to get done. There are an array of advancements that have happened on the smart grid side, and which is really, really interesting. But we still have a lot of work to do in terms of integrating the homes in a meaningful way to play in the demand response space. There is a rise of EV. We all know about that. But we also have to make sure that EVs and the synergies between EVs and home energy management happens seamlessly. It was a 1-year anniversary of the Inflation Reduction Act being passed yesterday. That's really great. But there is also a downside to that. The speed of implementation of the policies within the states is something that we need to accelerate. So there are rising tides and trends that are working together to create this perfect storm of accelerating decarbonization. But I also want to highlight that there are areas where we could do better. And with that said, I want to quickly jump into what we are doing with Kenmore and DieHard. Both Kenmore and DieHard are really well-known all-American brands. And the first thing that we are looking to do is making sure that we have an array of energy appliances that are applicable and relevant to your homes. It's not just about, major appliances or kitchen appliances or washers and dryers. You will see, and HVACs from Kenmore, water heaters, commercial and consumer EV chargers with the DieHard brand, electric dryers, and heat pump based systems that you can actually buy, and not just buy, but from a Kenmore DieHard perspective, we have an array of technicians, 2,500 odd technicians. We make 80,000 visits a week to people's homes to repair some of these appliances, with stepping in to install. And that's the advantage that we want to basically bring into American homes at this point in time. In addition to that, we have signed relationships with companies that have smart panels, and we want to integrate smart panels into people's homes. This way, it's not just about having energy appliances, but making sure that you have an understanding of how those appliances are consuming energy, which is number one. Two, prime your home to be an intelligent edge. And three is play in the demand response space on your own terms. And that's really, really important. And for you to do that, you need to have an energy dashboard, and you will see Kenmore Smart playing a pivotal role in bringing that energy dashboard to the table. And I also want to highlight that there are certain issues today in terms of educating a consumer on when the rebates are going to be available. Can we take rebates at the till? And I want to make sure that we are able to play in that space. So with that said, we are working very closely with Rewiring America and EPA to basically educate our customers. And when one of our 80,000 per week visits to people's homes, we want to educate our customers on whole home electrification. So that's an area that we are playing. We also have a service that's focusing on insulation and weatherization of your home. That's an area that we play. We have an array of not just appliances, but energy appliances. And this way, we bring you the full spectrum. But most importantly, as and when rebates are available, we want to enable the ability to take rebates at the till so that you don't have to pay out of your pocket and then wait for the money from the government. And we want to make sure that we make this really, really seamless. And last but not the least, I want to highlight that you want to have a very, very clear understanding of the energy consumption of your home and how you can play in the demand response space. That's a place you can see with the Ken Home, Whole Home, dashboard. Summary, I really think we are in a new era here. As I highlighted, we are in the era where objects are being connected, and thankfully in an era where standard bodies have started to work together. This is a perfect storm of intelligent edge, home electrification, regulation, and the government trying to be an accelerant. And with AI everywhere, I think this energy sector is going through a massive, massive transformation. Remember, the intelligent edge starts in your home with smart thermostats, AI everywhere, solar and storage, and EV in your home, and having an energy dashboard gets you to be a prime candidate to play with the grid. And that is a paradigm shift. There are other rising tides, which is external to your home, as I highlighted, smart grid and legislation, and that's adding to the perfect storm. And I just want to highlight, with so many pioneers in the space, Kenmore and DieHard, we are joining hands, and we want to help accelerate decarbonization and electrification. So with that said, I want to hand over my presentation slot to the Q&A session.
Wonderful. Shri, thank you so much for sharing all of that, all of your thinking, and also sharing a little bit more about what Kenmore is doing. Love to see all those partnerships you called out, and really the focus on focusing on affordability, right? Which is so important when we're thinking about electrification across the whole population. I want to remind the audience that you're able to get some questions in through the Q&A or chat tabs. But first, Shri, I wanted to ask you, appliances in particular are kind of a tricky area when we think about engaging the consumer at home, especially in the smarts and that energy conversation, especially even when you think about communicating the message that you're trying to communicate to your end users through getting that through the channel. So we hear a lot, let's say, from salespeople on the floor when consumers are shopping, that they maybe weren't even aware of all of the smarts and the energy features because they were really focused on price and whether the dishwasher rack is the way they like it, right? Can you talk about how you're engaging all the way through to the end user with your message and really educating that user on what appliances are capable of these days, especially in that energy story?
Jennifer, that's a great question. The beauty of where we are, as I highlighted, is a perfect storm, and I'll break this down into three parts. The first one is money talks. With the Inflation Reduction Act, especially when a technician, as I highlighted, in one of the 80,000 visits a week when they enter a person's home, they have a good understanding of the zip code they are in. They have a phenomenal understanding of what potentially the household income is. And thanks to partners like Rewiring America, the technician also has a great understanding of the potential rebates that are associated with that home. So think of this scenario when you walk into a person's home, there is an appliance repair. It might be a scenario where there's a replacement cycle, and that household can get up to $14,000 of free electrical appliances. It's very simple. You don't have to talk about decarbonization. You're not talking features. You're talking about your dishwasher is not working. Your cooktop has an issue, or your HVAC has an issue. We will replace, and it's gonna cost you $14,000 less. Or this is absolutely going to be for free, because it's not just appliances. It's even the servicing aspects of it is covered by the Inflation Reduction Act. So money talks. You don't have to talk about greenhouse gases. You don't have to talk features. It's the first step. So that's where we are starting, right? Because 80,000 footfalls per week into people's homes is a big number. So I'll stop there and say, irrespective of feature set, future cost savings with your utility bills, just highlighting that they have the ability to get some of the appliances for free is a great first step. And then you start to layer on, their energy bills. You start to layer on ease of install. You start to layer on feature sets. You start to layer on energy security for the country. So you have to build that value pyramid. Simply talking about electrification is not going to work. And doing it at the right time, it's just like getting a Gatorade at a point of thirst. Here, when the appliance is failing, you walk in and say, they've mentally made up their mind that they're going to spend $600,000, but you walk in and say, that could be for free. And that's the conversation starter. That's the point of thirst.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the audience questions kind of speaks to that. There was a question about who do you find to be the most valuable partner as some of the smart home IoT tech starts to become a little bit more mainstream, and that service person in the home who's actually talking to the customer, right? And we know that the mass market buyers are much more focused on cost and value and what practical benefits there are. So if you're telling them, we can replace or repair your appliances and the money talks there, that certainly fits. We have time for maybe one more question. Let's see. Here's another question from the audience. What are you hearing from consumers about the value of improved sustainability outcomes, and how does that compare with cost savings? So two different benefits, right? Cost savings versus improved sustainability outcomes. Maybe which is the stronger message?
Well, it's definitely cost savings. Let me be very open in terms of being environmentally conscious, greenhouse gases. That's a great value add message. But the biggest message here is, look, there's a massive cost savings. One, when it's an upfront purchase of the appliance. The second one is all about, once you purchase this, your whole home electricity bill will be much lesser. And then the third one could be, hey, if you play in the demand response space, you have the additional benefit of saving more money or potentially making money. And that's how is the value stack. I have seen in the world of IoT, people going with some of the feature set advantages. And I just want to end my the Q&A with this anecdote. I remember in the early days of IoT, we had these connected toothbrushes, and just because I could, I went and bought one, and it was 4 a.m. and I had a flight to catch, 7:30 flight to catch. I went and pulled up my toothbrush, and it didn't come out of basically the charging dock. And when I looked down, it says, please wait, updating software. So the point is, you need to have a phenomenal reason to be connected. You need to have a phenomenal reason for people to buy. And even today, just with our ears to the ground, as I highlighted, 80,000 customer visits per week, I can tell you people respond to cash incentives more than the message of sustainability or energy security for the country.
Yeah, and happy to share that Parks Associates data absolutely backs you up there. When we do our testing and our survey work, the Energy QC that I think the team put in the chat there, Energy Quantified Consumer, that is the study that we do each year, definitely it's cost savings first, and that environmental message is a wonderful add-on. Shri, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, but thank you for sharing your thoughts and joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. And give us just a minute and we'll bring the panel in for our panel discussion on smart energy devices and solutions.
Hello, welcome back. I'm happy to be hosting this panel with an interesting group of leaders here to discuss energy topics. I was just smiling at the little blue square person in that video. I love it. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about energy education as well as bringing new energy solutions to consumers. And I want to start by bringing in the panelists one by one and giving them an opportunity to introduce themselves and also share a little bit about what their company does. You have background on their perspectives as they're kind of participating in the discussion here coming up. So first, I'm going to bring in Anne from NRV. Hello, Anne. How are you?
Hi there. Doing great. Yeah, thanks. Thanks to you and also the sponsors of this event and the great team at Parks Associates for making our panel possible. I can't wait to talk to some of these folks in a bit. NRV is a climate tech company. We were founded in 2009. And our focus has always been on helping people make better buying decisions when it comes to energy related products in the home, everything from appliances to water heaters. And we do that by eliminating barriers. That's our focus, and helping shoppers choose and purchase the best products for them through an online marketplace experience. And this online marketplace experience is very different from other ones you might be familiar with. It makes energy efficiency visible with our integrated choice engine technology, which features a 0 to 100 energy efficiency index. It makes basically efficiency visible so people can actually choose the best products. The platform also puts efficient purchases within reach for traditionally hard to reach customer segments like low and moderate income, people with low credit scores, renters, all these difficult to reach people, by automatically serving up stacked rebates from different sources and providing the option for people to finance online purchases. So really tackling that financial barrier head on. The platform also simplifies complex purchases like heat pump water heaters by bundling in professional installation at the time of purchase. And finally, it also makes signing up for demand response programs at the time that a product is purchased, a smart thermostat, or hopefully more and more different types of products like EV chargers and water heaters, makes it very simple, makes it basically a no-brainer. And we're seeing pre-enrollment rates in DR programs above 90%. So that's just a snapshot of what NRV is all about. And I'm really looking forward to sharing and hearing more about the state of the art from my colleagues.
All right, thank you, Anne. I just wanted to let you know, by the way, in my recent appliance shopping adventures, I was using your site to get information. It's very helpful. There's a lot of good filters and stuff. There's a lot of information available there in one place. It's really a helpful service. So I appreciate you.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
All right, let's bring on our next panelist. Next, we have Mark from Southern Con Ed. He's a portfolio manager of emerging markets and tech. Mark, I appreciate you being here. I'm looking forward to your contributions. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Hi, Chris. Can you hear me? I presume. Is it coming through?
Yes, you sound good, Mark.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. So I'm Mark Martinez. I am the portfolio manager for the Emerging Markets and Technology Program. It's a research arm of our demand response portfolio. And of course, Southern California Edison is one of the 3 investor-owned electric utilities in California. Demand response has been, somewhat recent, actually only the last 20 years. Before that, we called it load management and other things because, we're all about reliable and affordable electricity. And one of the things that is unique with demand response is that it's what we call sort of a short-term behavioral energy efficiency program, meaning that it's designed to reduce the amount of energy being used at times when we need we have a critical shortage. So back in the day of load management, it was command and control, and we turned off pumps and air conditioners and things like that. With the emergence of new technologies, that gives customers more choices. It gives customers the ability to decide how they want to participate in grid reliability. So, as a utility, we don't make thermostats, we don't make electric cars or EVs, bus fleets, and so forth. But these are now tools that customers can use in participating in the grid reliability programs. And as things are changing, it's moving more so from demand response, which is event driven, to more of demand flexibility, which is what I would call sort of demand response all the time. Demand flexibility is something that I'm currently working on. And with demand flexibility, it's not so much about responding to an event, but it's now looking at the pricing. How you price electricity in the age of electrification and renewables is going to be very critical. So we're very excited to be talking about a pilot that we're working on, which is called the CalFuse pilot in California. It is looking at not so much how to provide new types of pricing for customers, but also for a way for customers to have DERs to be able to receive compensation for that. So things are changing a lot in California. I know that demand response is not equally distributed across the country, but as are smart thermostats. But then, these are all the things we really want to explore. So I'm glad to be participating in this panel today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. That sounds like cutting edge great work. So I appreciate you guys pushing the envelope forward on that, and look forward to hearing more as that pilot progresses. All right, so let me bring in my next panelist. Hello, Suzanne. You're here from Southern Gas Association. You're president and CEO. Thank you for being here. You're currently muted. You look good. Your camera looks good.
Sorry about that. I wanted to
All right,
make sure I didn't make noise. No, I appreciate you having been on the panel today. I certainly bring a different perspective than most of these people, but as we will discuss, the energy system needs to work in its entirety together. So as you mentioned, I'm the president and CEO of Southern Gas Association. It's a national trade organization for natural gas. Our members represent the entire value chain, all the way from E&P, which is the people that bring the product out of the ground, to distribution companies. Those are the people that provide it to the houses or to industry. And it's increasingly used in power generation, which is where you get your electricity. So I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation, and I look forward to today. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Suzanne, appreciate you being here, representing the fossil fuel game. All right, my next panelist, Ben Thacker, EVP of Business Development from Emporia. I was referring to your products a little bit earlier in the energy monitoring space, but you guys play in a couple different areas. So why don't you introduce yourself and talk about what Emporia is doing?
Thanks, Chris. I lead business development and sales at Emporia. We are an energy management platform that really, at the end of the day, just tries to make energy easy for homeowners. So we are focused on homeowners. We're focused in the residential space, and homeowners have had a lot thrown at them over the last 10 years of this energy transition. Time of use rates, peak demand charges, all of the things that were in C&I have cascaded down to homeowners now, and they're left to navigate all of this kind of on their own. Utilities help a lot with education and awareness, but still many homeowners don't really understand what a kilowatt hour is. So layering more things on top of them is really difficult. So our entire purpose is to demystify that and make that easy for homeowners. And we do that through our platform, which is a software platform that connects our products, but also other smart home products as well, that are focused on helping the homeowner see their energy and then action it or do something about it in order to maximize savings or maintain their own energy independence or things like that. So our platform has tools that allow homeowners to take action and manage their energy usage really, really easily. I'm excited to be on this panel and be included with everyone here, and looking forward to the conversation from all the different various perspectives.
All right, thank you, Ben. Thanks everyone for being here. So let's get started. So for the first topic, I wanted to touch on kind of where consumers are at right now. So what we see in our research is that consumers are interested in having more data closer to real time, more data reported to them in a way that is understandable so that they can take action. And most people currently are relying on their electricity provider to share that information with them, but also don't really engage as much as probably Mark and friends would like them to in terms of visiting the platform, looking at their bill and things like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys are each kind of working to close the gap in terms of helping the consumer get better information so that they can have a better understanding of how they're using their energy, and also just kind of train them to understand. To Ben's point, like, people don't know what a kilowatt is. We haven't had to care about it in the past because we haven't been using so much very expensive electricity, as kind of starting to be a trend now. So, and so I know your solution is definitely education oriented. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk first about how you guys are working on pushing that information to consumers, and a little deeper than you did in your intro. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't want to disappoint folks, but our approach to energy literacy is really, it's grounded in behavioral science insights. I think Ben's probably going to talk some about this too, but we don't focus on energy education per se, but rather on eliminating barriers that prevent people from actually doing the right thing. And Ben, does that sound like something that you're trying to do as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Is, the education and awareness is a really important factor, but a lot of people are busy. They don't have time. And so if we can cut out some of those components of it and just encourage the right behavior, then that's a win as well. The short answer from our side of the table is really knowledge is power. So we try and give people exactly what they care about in the palm of their hand. And it's not necessarily kilowatt hours, but we convert that into dollars. So we show them how much money they're looking at.
Yeah, and so from our side, we're helping people make the purchase of the devices and enroll in programs and things like that. So we know that most consumers think it's important to buy clean and efficient products for their homes, and they actually want to do that. But there's this attitude behavior gap that behavioral scientists talk about because of these barriers. So our product designers, and I'm sure yours, work really hard to reduce this cognitive load that people face and not increase it by trying to get people to really deeply understand kilowatt hours and therms. Like it's actually the opposite. So the example I gave at the beginning was that energy efficiency of a product is actually invisible. So even if a consumer wanted to buy an efficient product, all they have to go by is the Energy Star label, but that's just binary. It's either yes or no. So it doesn't help you actually choose the most efficient for your needs within Energy Star. So that's where our 0 to 100 energy score comes in. And consumers, they consistently say that that's the most helpful thing in their buying decision. And it's also been proven by a lot of research and evaluations to drive more efficient purchases, even when there's no incentives involved. So just giving people the ability to choose a more efficient product leads them to choose more efficient products. And the reason it works so well is because the 0 to 100 score is it's a mental shortcut. It's a heuristic that actually makes it quicker to find the best products. So anyway, just to wrap up, our approach is to pave the way for people to do the right thing quicker and easier.
All right. Mark, what would you like to add from the utility perspective?
Well, one of the things that I want to make an observation about is the role of automation. I mean, we see cars today that have the ability to avoid collisions, to have a lot of automated features, and customers opt into those things to be able to have a safer experience when they're driving. And I think that with the emergence of a lot of new technologies that will know when to make ice in the refrigerator, or we've developed Amazon Alexa skills to help customers understand their bills and so forth. So there's no shortage of tools out there. And I think customers will adopt the tools that they prefer to have, and we can, bring those tools to market. I think that's going to be a big revelation that's made a big change in helping customers just better understand. I agree. A kilowatt hour and a kW and stuff, those are kind of abstract terms. But what it boils down to is that customers, they purchase comfort, they purchase lighting, sanitation, lots of different things that are sort of derivatives. So we want to make sure that they can do that reliably and affordably as well.
Okay. Suzanne, from your perspective, where you're working a lot on educating people in the natural gas space, could you talk a little bit about how that work goes and also connect it a little bit to the consumer if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy being part of this panel because fundamentally what I want to do is bring energy literacy back to a bigger understanding of how do you get the power at the home to be able to use these smart devices. And I think if you take energy literacy, notably, it would be the challenge of helping people to understand and influence really the way they think about or they consume energy to develop a more sustainable energy system. And a core assumption about energy literacy is that people's complacency is lying in their superficial understanding of the energy system, right? Or in what their own form of participation would be. So in reality, if you take it back a step further, the energy systems are really entangled and with other interdependent and localized systems, and they implicate a much broader range of relationships beyond just the home. And so while somebody might say an energy literate person is somebody who knows the the consumption of their domestic appliances or what actions they can take in their home or how to be more economic in their energy decisions, I'm going to tell you that energy literacy has to start with where does the power come from to your home? And it involves things that are way bigger than just controlling your home. It's how do you get this power reliably? And this is something that America is facing, is a reliability system issue with their grid. And as a natural gas trade association, we are, like you said, an education organization. We don't do any lobbying. So we believe in all of the above power for what is required for the grid, but it needs to be consumed in a way that is environmentally responsible and reliable. And literacy goes beyond just having a power at your home. There also includes experiences like transitional living, working conditions, threats of utility shutoffs, preparation for service disruptions, and these smart home opportunities really are a way to partner with a utility to be able to load shed when it's appropriate so that you can get the energy that's required for the number of people that are working on there. And as we increase as we increase the data that is required, it requires more electricity, and power generation is pulling on natural gas in a large way. As a matter of fact, I live here in Texas, and I think reference to Uri, which was last February or 2 Februaries ago here in Texas, when there was definitely a pull on the ERCOT. But I looked at today, and 65% of the power generation yesterday here in Texas was from natural gas. So I would tell you that energy literacy has to be people understanding where the power is coming from and how to get it consistently so that these devices can work and do the job that they're supposed to do.
Yeah, we have some data around that that's really interesting. It shows that really few people understand what type of power they're using. And for Texans like us who have a mixed grid, right? So we have a ton of wind in the south and stuff like that. So it would be great if Texans knew when they're running their dryer, if it was wind on the grid or natural gas, so that they can make an educated decision on that. And so I think that's where the technology comes in. So Ben, I wanted to throw to you. So you're working, your platform is designed to push different types of information to the consumer so they can understand. But also, in order to take action on that, it needs to kind of work with what the energy providers are doing. So I wanted to give you a chance to, first of all, respond to what everyone just said, but also kind of speak to how tech can be working with utilities and kind of helping connect the dots for consumers.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Suzanne's absolutely right. I mean, this is similar to, I guess the parallel would be a financial portfolio, right? You want diversification. This transition and this electrification journey we're on is a very important one, but we need to do it right. And we're gonna have some pretty big bumps along the way if we don't have a really diverse and healthy portfolio of energy supply. So we're fully on board with the diversification, and it just comes down to a matter of time. So how we do that over what period of time is really the more important factors. How we're solving kind of our component of this is really just trying to meet the customer, the homeowner, where they are. So we've done a lot of the heavy lifting for them. So really, when a customer comes into the Emporia platform, they can have any of our products, they can have all of our products. It doesn't really matter. But one of the first things we ask them is, who is your utility provider? And then we try and establish the rate schedule that they're on. And if we can get that from them, and we try and do that a couple of different ways, automated, of course, to again make it easy, then we can do something with that. We can see their usage in their home. We can tell them if they change to a different rate that they might save this much money, or if they get an EV charger, there's a great DR program with the utility that you have, and there's you can opt in and enroll straight through the app. So we're trying to meet them where they are, and really, if we get that first bit of information, who's your utility, what's your rate schedule, then we can actually take action specifically for that family and for that homeowner, and not just kind of the peanut butter spread approach. So that's how we try and start with our customers, and then we have, of course, a number of other tools that we can do more dramatic things with as well. But we try and, from the onset, keep things really easy and automated for the homeowner.
Right. And you referenced a little bit in your intro that you guys are pushing demand response at time when people are buying these devices, which makes sense because it's a moment when they're engaged, and getting people engaged in their energy choices is the challenge and the opportunity here. So do you want to go a little bit more in depth with how you guys are handling that on the back end? Because to make that possible for the consumers, you obviously had to work it out with the utilities. So can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Yeah. And when we do partner with utilities, the other thing that makes it more compelling to the consumer to sign up for demand response at the time of the product purchase is that often there's a double rebate available. There's sometimes an energy efficiency rebate available for the thermostat device, along with a DR enrollment incentive up front. So
Right.
Sometimes we can get these thermostats to people at zero cost, which is obviously really compelling. It's a device that people don't really think that they absolutely need. So it does require, we've found, much greater uptake when these incentives are available. On the back end, we need to partner through the DERMS providers that the utilities are working with for their programs. And we need to partner also with the thermostat manufacturers, because we need to enroll the device, we need the serial number of the device. So we, on the back end, receive the serial number for the device that we're going to be shipping out. We share that serial number and the customer's address, name, and all their enrollment data with the DERMS provider. And then what's cool about it at that point, once the thermostat's delivered, and as soon as the person installs it, either through a contractor or DIY, it's instantly in the program already. There's no other step to enroll in the program afterwards. So it's another one of these examples where it's just really slick for the consumer. If you had to explain to them that after they got the device, they have to enroll it or something like that, it's just too big of a hurdle. Yeah.
Right.
And we're seeing like, one of the programs that we work with on this is Arizona Public Service, utility down there in Phoenix. And this thermostat program has a total of 110 megawatt of load reduction going on right now. So it can be really big. And I'm also excited that we're slowly now, with the DERMS providers, being able to enroll other types of devices like EV chargers and things like that.
Yeah. So that's a good, thank you for sharing a specific example. Also shout out to APS that participated in some of our Smart Energy Summit content in the past. There's a lot of great folks over there. Mark, do you want to kind of follow up talking about, from your perspective, working with the Smart Energy folks and getting the DR and DERMS programs set up in a way that's, as low friction as possible for the customers?
Yeah, those are programmatic issues, and I appreciate Ann's perspectives on that. There's lots of ways to engage customers, to enroll them, and to sustain them, and so forth. And those are actually the hardest parts of actually demand response. The technology is never. I mean, we had smart thermostats 20 years ago, quite honestly, and being able to communicate with them effectively through FM radio or paging systems or whatever is always been something that's innovative. Now we have smartphones. Now we have apps. So it's just a matter of getting the customers to understand the value proposition for them and that they can be partners in grid reliability. I think that's the really exciting part of that. You don't want to be pressing the button too often, but you also want to make sure that it's a meaningful experience for customers and using the technologies that they already have. As they adopt electric vehicles, as they adopt smart appliances, there's going to be more opportunities. And it comes to the fact that we're looking beyond the smart thermostat to something what we call the whole house or mass market demand response concept, where the customer has a choice of, we just want you to reduce maybe a kW for a few hours. Well, then you get to choose either through your home energy management system or Alexa skill or whatever, that you can just reduce what makes sense for you. So those are the kind of, progressions and migrations we're looking forward to do in the future.
Yeah, that's really cool. The opportunity to interact with a bunch of devices, either because you're connected at the panel or because Alexa is directing traffic. That's a really interesting idea. So speaking of managing large loads in different ways, thermostats are managing the biggest load in HVAC, but as Ann mentioned earlier, heating up water is also very energy heavy, as well as EV charging, which is obviously on the rise. So I wanted to kind of raise the issue, and also, since we were just hearing from Kenmore, just to kind of give you guys a chance to talk about working with the manufacturers of essentially appliances, as broadly as you want to define appliances, in terms of helping them manage loads. And I think I want to give Suzanne a chance to talk about that in terms of working with the product makers and manufacturers in that capacity.
I'm not sure you meant to throw this one to me.
You want to talk about? Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Mark, can I go to you? Do you want to talk about working with? Yeah.
Yeah, we've been working with manufacturers for a long time because they're the ones that make the devices. And they ask us, you have a program called Demand Response in Southern California or in Texas or whatever jurisdiction. How could we participate in that? And how could we leverage our products to be, more, contributing to that? But also in California, and also you'll see with EPA that there's codes and standards. We have the load management standards in California that are directing appliance manufacturers to have a demand response capability so that they can receive signals and so forth. So when you embed that, not only in new construction, but also in the appliances themselves, then the manufacturers want to know how to comply with that. I mean, they don't want to island out California as a place they can't sell equipment, but also how that can contribute. And we have a tremendous amount of interest from offshore manufacturers, that are making the new types of heat pump water heaters and things like that, how we can work with them. So we work with open standards. We work with the manufacturers. We have a lot of research studies that my program does to basically understand how they can be more flexible, how they can respond to prices, and how they can really minimize the loss of utility to the customer. They don't lose their cooling or their food preservation or their pool cleaning. They really want to maintain things, but yet contribute to the grid.
Right. So, go ahead. Ann, did you want to add something?
No, I was just going to say, I want to set up a call with you, Mark, that I want to learn about the latest. That sounds really interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help everyone network. That's what we're doing. Okay. So we've talked a couple times about EVs. I want to make sure we get into that before I go to questions from the audience. So we're confident it's going to happen, even if it takes 10, 15 years for most of the American fleet to switch over. It's still going to be a major issue for people's home in scenarios where they're charging at home and the grid in general. So I wanted to throw to you, Suzanne, first, since I awkwardly did it last time, but this time I'll give you a chance. I think you're good with this. you would talk about grid resilience during the transition to EV life.
Yeah, and sorry, I think actually I misunderstood the question before, but I could have probably spoken to that as well. Yeah, no, grid resilience is going to be key, especially as we add additional load bearing onto it. And so how the smart systems are going to be able to work and be able to be demand responsive, and then have other options for energy that will be able to be distributed energy. A perfect example is people installing natural gas generators. Well, that's changing the load on the system as well. And so to create a really resilient grid, there's a lot of things that are going to happen that, and then as we talked about earlier, is this being partners in grid reliability. And so it's going to require all these devices working together, but also the general public needs to have an understanding of what does a base load look like and what is a base load. Most people don't understand that to start with. And then how do you do it in a way, I'm always thinking in terms of sustainability. And so how do you create the cleanest form of energy? And frankly, as a society, we're going to need to reduce our emissions. We're going to have to sequester carbon emissions. And all of the industries and people are going to have to make significant changes to the way they relate to and consume energy. And so it's going to require all of us working in concert to make sure that we are able to provide the energy that leaves the homes with power that's affordable and reliable, so that there aren't outages, as you see in South Africa, where there's frequent load shedding and the security systems don't work. And so it would be a shame to have a completely smart home that didn't have power to be smart, right? And so you can look at, if you want to look immediately at Hawaii, look at what's going over there in Lahaina, and the lack of power to the homes is, could cripple everything. So it's all going to have to work in concert. And how do you create this to be reliable and affordable so that the homes can be smart and we could use energy in the most efficient way that is has the most density and is the least carbon emitting. And so all of it has to be thought about together.
Yeah, so I saw, so Ben, you look like you want to reply, but I also see an audience question I want to throw to you too, about bidirectional. So could you talk a bit about your plans going forward with the EV charging aspect, as well as V2X, if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a perfect segue. So I agree with everything Suzanne just said as well. And then you combine that with the fact that Americans love cars, and we just are going to keep buying cars at the conservative number, 15 million a year. So you think about 15 million minimum, rolling batteries, then we have a significant demand problem, right? It's a problem that, Mark knows extremely well from the utility side. Suzanne knows as well from the supply and generation side too. The way that we're looking at that is more on the management side. So our platform really, and the way we see our role in this, is as a broker and as an advocate between the homeowner and the utility. And for us to do that effectively, we can start with things like DR programs, where we can help try and limit demand. But then we look at what can we do on the supply side? How can we help manage supply of energy to less healthy parts of the grid and enable utilities to do that really efficiently and effectively? The best way, if you kind of combine all of those factors, is bidirectional EV charging. Now, there's a lot of different things that have to happen. There's a lot of opinions and a lot of things that need to be overcome and worked through. But that's really one of the most important kind of brokerage roles that a manufacturer like us can really play. And once we have bidirectional vehicle to grid and then also vehicle to home, that is one of the most important tools in our tool belt that we'll all be able to use to create a resilient and healthy grid. So we are hyper focused on the production, really the development and production of our bidirectional EV charger, and think that will be our hero product for many, many people in North America.
Great. So Mark, I want to give you a chance to comment on this as well. But first, I wanted to remind everyone that we have a poll that's about whether people are going to attend DistribuTech. We would love to hear if you guys are going to be around, so that we can hopefully meet with you. Looks like more than half of the respondents are going to be at DistribuTech, which is awesome. That means it's going to be a great networking opportunity for everyone who's in this audience. But so everyone take a second to do that. And then Mark, so you guys are having to adapt to this consumer trend of EVs being purchased. So I wanted to give you a chance to speak on that. And I also see a question from the audience that's about SMB. So I wanted to see if you want to talk about how you guys are helping SMB, since this has been largely consumer focused, a lot of this conversation.
Sure. So I think Ben's right. I mean, this is an inevitable wave of consumer demand. I mean, cars are rather an emotional purchase, right? We don't get emotional over a heat pump water heater or air conditioner that much. And so there will be a behavioral aspect to how customers want their relationship with their cars and the utility. One of the things that we're working on today is coming up with more accurate pricing to reflect wholesale market costs for energy as well as local grid needs. And when folks say, so what does the electric grid need? And we really say, well, it's in the way it's priced, the way the pricing is set up. So that's going to be an interesting thing. If we can communicate effectively to vehicles, to fleets, to passenger vehicles and so forth, what the price of electricity is, it can decide on its own with its own agency whether to charge or discharge or whatever, and that'll be facilitated through the different rules that we have with interconnection. But I do think that this is a new era, and we can't give a car in different areas the same price. It's going to make a difference, and the agency of we drive our cars all day long past gas stations. They don't know what the price of gas is, but we want to be able to give a car the ability to understand how the electric grid works. So that'll be a good thing.
Right. That's a very interesting perspective. It's going to be, we say paradigm shift over here all the time. I talk about the cultural piece as well, because I agree with everyone here about Americans and their cars. It's that's where we have a major preoccupation, love affair with the automobile. So when something changes in that space, it's for sure going to be a big deal for the entire country. But I have a question in the audience that I think is relevant here, and it's a group we haven't touched on. So we're talking about all this progress and change, revolution and evolution of how these technologies are happening. But we also have another major change happening culturally in this country, which is the rise of aging in place. Home automation does a lot of stuff to help them, but I don't think talk about what energy aspects the aging population is kind of dealing with. So I want to give anyone a chance to talk about how their solution or just energy tech in general, or how the changing energy space is going to impact and who can help the aging population.
So this is Mark, and I'll dive in. We have there's no shortage of innovation right now. We've developed some really cool Alexa skills to help customers, rather than look at a website or their phone or an app or something, just ask, what is the price of electricity right now, or how much is my bill today? Those are the kind of things that make things a lot easier. And then if they're not interested, they don't have to ask. But all these things are interconnected. And then when it comes to the infrastructure that we have, I mean, it's something that's important that we have reliable electric service. And there's a lot of need for that, not only in certain areas, but across the system overall. So that's the number one focus. But I think that the consumer tools that are being available through Anne and Ben, and then of course, the way that reliable energy is coming from the different energy sources, is going to be an important aspect of our future. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I'm going to give you a personal example here. So I'm the POA for my aunt and uncle who live in California. They're 90. They live in an all-electric house in Malibu, and the constant rolling blackouts cause their appliances to go out. So they had what Mark just said is the reliability of your energy and predictability of it to be able to transition and make sure that your appliances and the things in your home can sustain and last longer, so that you're not throwing out your food. So ultimately, the reliability of energy is key for the aging population, because it is not only are you managing getting the cheapest kilowatt, it's the cost of unreliable energy that is personally devastating to people that are on fixed incomes or elder or rely on apparatuses that need to be powered.
Yep, Suzanne nailed it. I mean, the only comment I would make just in support of that is, vehicle to grid is going to be really exciting. Vehicle to home is exciting, but cars move. People use cars and drive them, and they're not always on premise at the location. So stationary batteries or energy storage on site is also something that we feel is going to be a critical piece of this kind of diversified portfolio that we have of offerings for people. And like Suzanne said, if somebody's on fixed income or somebody has medical equipment that needs to be up and running in any environment, whether it's power outages because of cold weather or something else that's happening in California or a fire, whatever it might be, stationary batteries are going to be critical for some families. So we think that's an important part of this portfolio and solution set.
Well, and luckily we also have the coming of much more longer duration utility scale storage as well. So that's going to help it also.
We're working on it. Absolutely.
All right. So I think that's a good hopeful note to end on. We're all working together in different ways to increase resilience and education. I think that's we've touched on a lot of interesting topics. I really appreciate everyone for being here, for their contribution. And I'm going to say goodbye to all of you now and kind of wrap up here. But I definitely want to be in touch with everyone to hear about what you're doing down the road. So definitely everyone in the audience, also be sure to reach out to our panelists. They have a lot more information, of course, and they can offer details and follow-ups. I'm sure they would love you to contact them. But I also want to talk to you a little bit before we close about some of what's coming up from Parks Associates. Next, we have another one of these virtual conferences that I hope you will join us in November. We're going to talk more about EVs in terms of what they're going to be doing to the grid and also opportunities. So we're going to get deeper on that topic in November. I want to thank our sponsors again for making this possible. Connectivity Standards Alliance, Rapid Response Monitoring, Calix, Schneider, and others. Also wanted to remind people to look into our research. We have QR codes that help you. We have links in the chat. I hope you will go and look and see what's a potentially useful study for you. Also, if you're just curious about what's inside and there's not enough detail for you on the site, I'm happy to talk to you about it. Also, our sales team will share more details with you, so definitely be sure to reach out. A lot of the data that I shared in the deck that hopefully you guys will be downloading to take a look is based on the Energy Management and Services at Home report that I shared earlier. It includes perceptions of consumers on how they're using their energy and also trends in adoption, purchasing, and a deep dive on energy monitoring solutions that are kind of a little bit of a new topic that we want to make sure is being elevated and getting that data out there. In addition to our primary research work, we also do custom marketing services. We will partner with you to write white papers. We will supply our authorship and data to create some content that you can share that is relevant to your work. So please go visit our white papers page and download our white papers for free. There's some free data and research in there as well as industry perspectives. Also, we have webinars where we put together groups like this and talk about a particular topic. If there's something you want to highlight, we're happy to host and use our network to bring in great panelists. And then I am actually the host of the Connected Consumer podcast, which you guys should look up wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify or otherwise, Apple Podcasts, of course. And we have a link on our site where you can just kind of listen on your laptop rather than that. You can just put me on the side while you're doing your work. I appreciate it. We also have other events. As I mentioned, we collect a great deal of data about connected devices, not just about energy. We have other topics that we also specialize in, and we have events that are connected to those that are similar to this one, where we have virtual and in person. So for health, our next one is also in November on the same day as the Next Energy. one where we're talking about connected health topics. Smart Spaces is our opportunity to talk about multifamily. So it covers all the content that we cover today, including smart home and health and everything else, but it's through specifically multifamily lens. So if that's an area where you play or an area where you're curious to get better at playing, definitely check out Smart Spaces. And then our flagship event is called Connections. And each year at CES, similar to what I was talking about earlier with Distributech, we co-locate at CES. I'm sure lots of you guys are going to be at CES. So make sure you also register for our event and come and join. You can see data, you can do networking, and that is a little bit more intimate than the humongous extravaganza of CES. You can just find the like-minded folks over there that are talking about home automation. We also have more virtual events. Connections is coming in October. And Future Video, which is our entertainment and video focused event, is right around the corner, mid-September. And then after we are doing our in-person event, please keep an eye out for more virtual events with Smart Energy. More information here about Distributech. Please use this link to find more information. Look into registration. I think we have some kind of price advantages in terms of working with Distributech registration and registering for us. So look into that and see if we can help you make it happen where you get to Distributech and also get to come and see us. Reach out for our sales team if you're interested in any of the research or services that I just discussed. Ashton handles the sponsorships. Jason handles a lot of the research sales in terms of the studies I was talking about with our data inside. And then Mindy Sue handles our marketing pieces. And also, reach out to Mindy Sue if you'd like to be on our panel and get your perspective out there. So all that information is included in the slide deck that you can download. I appreciate everyone's attention today and patience through some of the earlier tech issues. I feel like the rest of the session, though, was really good, and Cerise shared a lot of really interesting information about the future of Kenmore and all the cool partnerships they're working with. So I think we had a great session here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please reach out to me to discuss any of these issues further, and also check out Parks Associates on LinkedIn and Twitter, as well as, of course, connecting with Elizabeth Parks on LinkedIn. She puts a lot of awesome content out there, and she is super widely networked. So if you want to get in the conversation and connect with Elizabeth, that is very beneficial to you. So thank you, everyone, for your attention today, and enjoy the rest of your day.